Kimmel's a loser.
He criticized capitalism without a conscience. And that's what we have now. We have capitalism without a conscience. He showed the common man being fed through gears of the brutal, dehumanizing industrial age. You got to speak, man. This is not a time to clam up, and not a time to get frightened. You have to do what you have to do. This is dire. I just want to express it in a positive way. I want to turn everything painful into art. He took on the American right wing of his day, its worst evils: hatred of immigrants, contempt for the truth, greed, and the abuse of power.
A terrible, stupid person, actually, that couldn't do the job well. And I fired him. And he sort of confirmed it. I don't know how he confirmed it.
This whole thing has brought back my 8-year-old self. It's been a gift from God. It's literally brought me back to 8 years old, where I used to sit in my room. Trump is toast.
I like that one. That's
Trump is toast.
Donald Trump just responded to Jim Carrey, and let's be real, this is going to be the unintentional comedy special of the year. Carr's roast had Trump irate roaming around Mar-a-Lago like a rejected SNL sketch, probably rehearsing insults between overcooked steak bites. Now he's unleashed his reply, and guess what? It's as crazy as you'd think. Did he deliver a good comeback, or is this just another public breakdown? Stay tuned, because this exchange is getting uglier than his hair in a gusty breeze. See, we would. Jim Carrey never holds back. The guy has spent years making us laugh, contorting his face into facial expressions that mock human anatomy and dishing out comedic put-downs with the accuracy of a sniper. And with Donald Trump. Oh, Carrey has had a field day. So when Trump finally fired back, you just knew it was going to be the type of meltdown that makes a toddler's tantrum look respectable. Trump, a man who boasts of never letting an insult go, he took the bait like a fish that's waited its entire life to be hooked. His reaction was precisely what you'd anticipate: a tirade of grievances, victimhood, and some good old Trumpian hyperbole. If there were an Olympic competition for taking jokes personally, Trump would have more gold medals than his fake university-awarded degrees, and in classic Trump style, the reaction was more about reminding everyone that nobody, absolutely nobody, disrespects Donald J. Trump and lives to tell the tale, except, of course, everybody who has ever roasted him. Harry, in his typical over-the-top style, painted Trump as the human version of an out-of-service fax machine. Noisy, outdated, and always jamming up the system. It was the type of roast that burned so deep it likely left a mark on Trump's spray tan, and instead of letting it slide like any normal human being who can take a joke, Trump did what Trump does best: he made it everyone else's fault. I just want to say it in a positive way, I want to make everything painful into art, predictably. His reaction included the usual shots washed up, not funny anymore, Hollywood elitist. And let's not forget the all-time favorite some form of people are saying, which in Trump speak is code for, I just made this up. But it sounds good. And of course, in Trump's telling of the story, Carrey isn't just a comedian who made fun of him. He's now part of a grand conspiracy against America, democracy, and possibly even the fine art of hair maintenance. Melania, being herself, avoided it.
But I used to love to draw cartoons, and I thought,
Me too.
You played a cartoonist.
This whole thing has brought back my 8-year-old self. It's been a gift from God. It's literally brought me back to 8 years old, where I used to sit in my room. Trump is toast.
The one that's the most successful is Greg.
Who?
Greg Gutfeld.
So Jimmy Kimmel, we got to make him great again.
Well, Jimmy Kimmel's a loser. Look,
Jim Kimmel. But you can't help but wonder what her response was in private. Perhaps a practiced eye roll. Perhaps another deep breath as she mentally counted down how many more years of this she has left. Or perhaps she was actually relishing the fact that someone finally spoke out about what she's been thinking since day one, while Trump's inner circle likely had a crisis meeting, trying to determine how to spin this one. Do we blame Carr for being a radical socialist? What if we call him a member of the deep state? Can we feign this never occurred and hope Fox News doesn't report on it? The options were limitless. Of course, the best part of this whole thing, Carrey was likely somewhere smiling from ear to ear, knowing that he got precisely what he asked for, Trump taking the bait, proving the joke wasn't only amusing, but actually prophetic. Because if there is one thing Carrey and the rest of us know by now, it's that Trump can dish, but take. Oh, that's a whole different story. Melania Trump showed up at Trump's high-dollar fundra in Florida over the weekend, looking completely miserable. Miserable. Looking like she is being held captive. You have to see this. Just wanting change. Rich folks want it. Poor folks want it. Everyone wants change. Our country is really doing badly. We're a laughing stack around the world. We're going to get that changed very fast. And this had been some amazing evening before the rumors that Melania had been noticeably absent from the campaign. Trail for very particular reasons. She doesn't wish to be there. It appeared to be substantiated by her presence. Here Jim Carrey has been lampooning Trump for decades. His artwork alone could get Mar-a-Lago's gold-plated walls to spontaneously ignite. But this time, he gave a public verbal smackdown so harsh, so biting, that even Trump's most die-hard devotees had to stop and consider whether or not he had a point. It wasn't just the typical jabs about orange spray tans, incoherent rants, or golf obsession. Though come on, those never grow old. Carrey dove directly at the center, revealing Trump's longtime history of rewriting history, taking credit where credit wasn't due, and blaming everyone else. When things get bad, it was the type of speech that had even Fox News anchor reeling, trying to figure out how to spin it. And that's saying something. Check out what Jim K says. This is sick. This came out this morning. Innocent men and women are now being butchered. Ed families.
Shamelessness is not and will never be a superpower. It is the mark of a villain. Kidnapping children is not what great nations do. Almost half of America at this moment believes there is a sinister deep state diabolically plotting to what? What is the sinister plan here? We in America are misinformed.
Devastated, and children's lives wrecked. All in his name. If the craven Republican. Senate lets this odious miser go. On promoting divisiveness, the Trump presidency will be an extinction-level event, and here he illustrates Trump with a swastika, like a gigantic asteroid from space, heading for the Earth. Trump naturally responded the only way he can. How crazy, unhinged meltdown mode. His reply wasn't really a defense, but rather a word salad, laced rant that read like a poor improv skit. Nobody asked to see if there was a logical thought in there. Nobody could determine it. He criticized Carr's career, which is rich. Coming from a man whose entire TV legacy consists of firing folks and slapping his name on products. He attempted to label Carrey as washed up, a term that, coming from him, carries about as much heft as a wet cheeseburger wrapper. But let's be real, Carr is anything but washed up. He could make a random social media update today, and it'd still be trending for weeks. Meanwhile, Trump's big comeback online after getting kicked off big platforms, crickets. Turns out when you lose the privilege to scream into the internet, abyss, 24/7, people don't miss you nearly as much as you imagined. Well, we've got some of the dumbest world leaders. We've got losers. We've got losers. They're losers. They're just losers. We've got very stupid people. We've got stupid leadership. How stupid are our leaders? Melania, on the other hand, was probably somewhere in the background honing her world-class skill at acting. Like none of this was happening. This is a woman who has wasted years being in a state of, please don't engage me. And yet here she is, again caught up in the ridiculousness that is her husband's. War against Hollywood Carr's roast didn't hurt so much because it was humorous. It was painful because it was real. He didn't just ridicule Trump's behavior, he highlighted the cringeworthy contradictions, the hypocrisy, the weird desperation to be accepted by individuals who would not invite him to their backyard barbecues if he was the last visitor on planet Earth. And the highlight, Trump's efforts to turn around only ended up making matters worse, because whenever he attacks a person like Carrey, he's granting them even more attention, making what they say have that much harder impact. Carrey does not even have to reply anymore at this stage. The internet is doing the job for him himself. That is all his donors and special interests out there. It's been a ride for me, incredible one. It has been fun. Tons of it. I never thought to become a politician in my lifetime. He stated. I'm not. I guess you're right. I'm not. I refuse. We have to have a leader who wrote The Art of the Deal. I'll say anchor, baby. It's a never-ending cycle. Trump initiates a fight. Someone, smarter, funnier, and more respected destroys him. He has a tantrum. The world laughs, rinse, and repeat. And if history has taught us anything, it's that Trump will absolutely not let this go. So get ready, because this saga is far from over, as expected. Trump's reaction was more of a word vomit and less of a rebuttal with all the grace of a toddler. Throwing mashed potatoes, he attempted every trick in the book. Insults, exaggerations, and his personal favorite feigning. He doesn't care while making it agonizingly clear that he cares more than anyone. The irony was delectable. The man who constructed his whole persona around belittling others suddenly couldn't take a joke at his own expense. And even funnier was his effort to discredit Carrey by attacking his career, which is a bold thing to do, coming from someone whose most well-known TV moment is yelling, "You're fired," at people who were likely better qualified than him. And let's not forget, Jim Carrey is one of the best-selling out comedians of all time. He does not require Trump's validation, or really even his notice, but Trump, he feeds on it. That's why he continues to go out of his way to give these unwinnable fights and make himself an even larger punchline than ever before. She's a crooked individual. She is a terrible person. Wicked. She's a wicked, ill-sick, crazy bee. Oh no, it begins with a B, but I shall not say it. I wish to say it. By the end of his tirade, it was evident Trump had managed to do a mere one thing: remind everyone of why Carr's dismantling was so dead on to begin with. Because if there's anything Trump is better at than anything else, it's vindicating his critics. Trump's anger wasn't about the jokes. Oh no, it went much deeper. He was enraged that Carr's words had landed, that the public was devouring it, and that for once, he couldn't simply sweep it aside as fake news. The notion that a Hollywood actor could get beneath his notoriously thin skin? Unacceptable. It didn't matter that he had much larger issues to attend to. Court cases, political opponents, a fan base that may or may not be growing weary of his greatest hits. No, what mattered most in that moment was ensuring that everyone understood he was unfazed by ranting incessantly about how unfazed he was. Backstage, aides were apparently scrambling to mitigate the fallout, which is a classy way of saying they were attempting to prevent Trump from rage, posting himself into another PR fiasco. Meanwhile, Carrey, oh, he was most likely somewhere laughing, drawing another savage caricature, or perhaps even planning his next Trump takedown, because if there's one thing history has taught us, it's that Trump can dish it out. But taking it, that's a whole different story. Fashion. I said it's illegal. We have very stupid people. Media take a gander at all those people over their scavengers. They are like scavengers. Carrey did not just let Trump's reply pass, he treated it as new material for an encore performance, with the intensity of a man who has dedicated decades to mastering the craft of comedic annihilation. He shot back with even greater width, demonstrating once again that Trump's thin skin was no match for his razor-sharp tongue. Whether he did it through another incendiary interview, a searing social media post, or yet another scathing caricature. Carrey made it clear Trump's tantrum had only served to make the roast even funnier. And here's the kicker. Carrey didn't merely call out Trump, he turned the entire ordeal a spectacle. His fans were devouring media. Outlets were running wild with the story. And Trump, well, he was left seething in the Mar-a-Lago dining room, ranting to anyone who would listen about how Hollywood was out to get him. Because in the grand tradition of all things, Trump, his efforts at clapping back only served to make things worse. The more he ranted, the more he played right into Carr's hands. And if there's one thing we've learned by now, it's that giving a comedian more material is like handing a pyromaniac a flamethrower. Things are only going to get hotter. Apparently I was threatened on Twitter, so I don't know. I didn't see the thing. I heard there was, some severed goat head and I'll see you soon kind of thing. But you gotta speak. Man, this is not a time to clam up, and not a time to get frightened, You have to do what you have to do. This is dire. Carrey wasn't just roasting Trump. At this point, he was putting on a full comedic masterclass every time Trump tried to fire back. Carrey flipped it into another joke, effortlessly turning the former president's rants into self-parody. The irony was almost too perfect. Trump, a man who desperately wanted to be taken seriously, was now being mocked by a man best remembered for speaking out of his butt in Ace Ventura. And let's be honest, Carrey was having the time of his life, and Trump's reaction was full of the usual complaints, paranoia, and strange attempts at self-praise. Carrey treated it like the world's easiest joke setup. It was almost unfair. Trump gave him material on a silver platter, and Carrey, being Carrey, ran with it like a cartoon character in hyperdrive. We have a president who began when the country was united and had a great leader, and he is ripping us limb from limb, dismantling every institution. Let's discuss this. Donald Trump. Although we don't wish to, let's invite on the panel for this. He's a car salesman. He's an ab, and he's, he didn't make America great again, but he did turn back the odometer. The outcome, a spectacle that left everyone in stitches. Except, of course, Trump, who was likely pacing around Mar-a-Lago, asking why no one was making a joke about his meltdown. At this point, it was obvious Trump had chosen the wrong battle, because if there's one thing you do not do, it's attempt to out-joke a comedian who has built a career out of destroying egos with one punchline, and poor Melania, you just know, she was over in the background gazing out into space, figuring out exactly how many more public humiliations she gets to go through before she can live her best post-First Lady life at peace. By the end of the day, Trump's reply to Carrey was merely another addition to the never-ending highlight reel of his thin-skinned ego being deflated by someone whose wit was sharper and sense of humor better. And as for Carrey, he'll keep on doing what he does best, making people laugh, unmasking hypocrisy, and reminding us all that when it comes to roasting, Trump, the material just writes itself.